ħanaqra silta żgħira mill-ewwel kapitlu dwar Maria Dolores illi jissu jagħti idaħalna fil-burdata tat-taħdita tal-lum li hija dwar il-maskulinità tossika u aspetti oħrajn tal-ġeneru li ġejjin abbinati mar-rumanz. Dolores ridet iben li jikberu jsir mhux raġel kif kienu jissejħu jqishom lilhom infushom l-irġiel kollha li kienet tafi. Iżda raġel mod ieħor. Raġel b'saħħtu li ma jkasbarx. Raġel qalbini li ma jbeżżax. Raġel ta' femtu imma mhux ardit. Raġel li jaf ibaxxi rasu daqskemm jollija. Raġel li jaf jisma' daqskemm jaf jitkellem, li jaf jagħti daqskemm jaf jilqa', li jekk ikun hemm bżonn jieħu pass lura daqskemm jieħdu l-quddiem. Ridet iben li b'ġismu jixed lubija u b'qalbu irġulija. Iben b'saħħtu, iben b'saħħa li biha jibni u jsebbaħ madwaru. B'saħħa li biha jaf ukoll jagħder, jifhem, iħenn u jħoss. Ibni kienet satannilu, ibni molaw, mola smewiet, imma laqat tinsa fejn jibdew is-swaba ta' saqajk, ibni fl-art, fuq l-oljiet, imma laqat tħalli tifrik u dmija warajk. U issa nixtieq nistieden il-Romeo u lil-Omar jibdew it-taħdita tagħhom.
Grazzi tal-Ktieb tal-xogħol u tal-li speċi ħloq din il-komunità ta' nies madwar il-xogħol u tal-li għażiltna li nkunu parti minn din il-komunità madwar ix-xogħol. Veru ċitat, ferfil hekk jiġifieri għaliex ilna nafu l-xulxin għal ħafna snin u qatt ma kont daqshekk involut viċin fix-xogħol tal-Marjana ġifieri u veru I'm super excited until I settle down I'm going to be a bit worried. Però insomma il-Ktieb biex speċi nagħtikom daqsxejn ta' idea ta' fuq xi se nitħattu llum. Il-Ktieb huwa set speċi ta' ġo dan il-begginaġġ, burdell, hotel, palk, ktieb, struttura. Ħanajdilkom ukoll li jista' jmur lura ġifieri anke għal Edem fil-Babilonja Antika man-nisa ta' Sippar ma dawk in-nisa li kienu jissejħu naditu illi kellhom komunità fejn kienu ekonomikament indipendenti bħalma ġara fil-fatt fil-begginaġġ fil-fatt. U f'din il-komunità nsibu dawn il-karattri illi fosthom nisa ta' 80 sena li huma sesswalment sħan u nies żgħar femministi illi għandhom rapport mas-saħna li mhuwiex daqshekk intis mal-ġisem pereżempju. Fosthom insibu diskorsi ta' nies illi kważi nixeqilbu lejn TERF bħala trans exclusionary radical feminist, però oħrajn illi speċi id-diskors tagħhom huwa jissieħab mal-idea tal-kostruzzjoni tal-ġeneru. Mhux ħaniżvela xejn fil-plott, mhux ħaniżvelaw xejn mill-plott, jiġifieri. Però se nitkellmu, jienu Romeo kellna diskussjonijiet twal fuq dan it-tiep wara li rajna dan it-tiep għall-ewwel darba. U se nitkellmu daqsxejn fuq l-idejat li speċi ħarġu minn dan il-ktieb waqt id-diskussjonijiet tagħna. Ovvjament meta taqraw il-ktieb se tindunaw għalfejn din il-konversazzjoni. Without giving too much away. Le, ovvjament. Però qabel nibdew, Joe se jaqranna silta li speċi se tkun ta' cue se tkun ta' speċi trigger għall-konversazzjoni tagħna.
Eżilju tiegħek. Timbidel intensità tad-dawl. L-introduzzjonijiet nafuhom jibdew l-ewwel bl-isem jew it-titlu. Entrin qed tilkom diġà tant dwari u lanqas darba ma semmejtu ismi fi kliemi. Nistħallilkom tistaqsu meta se nsiru nafu x'ismu biex nibdew nsejħulu bih. Imma forsi le, għax qed nassumi li ismi diġà semmijulkom ħaddieħor. L-isem mhux hekk jintuża minn kulħadd barra minn situ. L-isem l-ewwel għotja minn ħaddieħor biex titqies maqtuħ mill-oħrajn. Għandu ħabta jiddeffes fil-qalba tat-tifsira tal-identità. Huwa min int u min insejjaħ li tkun, gnajru disgrazzjat, la int meqjus u lanqas mint mifhum. dak li ħaqek mingħajr ma ħaqekx. Isimna rridu nagħmluh jiġina. Imbagħad iwissuna ħajja jintgħażel isem tajjeb milli fidda, milli der, għax b'isem tajjeb anqal ir-rispett lejk. Jgħidulek għamel isem tajjeb għalik innifsek. Biet minnek il-malafama. La tħallix minn ħassarulek ismek. Huwa ismek li jitkellem għalik, jurix tiswa, jikxef ir-rida tiegħek, setetek, siditek, ismek tiegħek, int. Kif inserta tawlek ħaddieħor bħala xhieda tal-ġeneru, in-nisel, il-familja, iż-żmien ta' twelid. Jew tal-ebda minn dawn, għax jaffinata minn l-ebda ħsieb, jaffin tażel skont x'nelħet l-om l-ewwel mal-weldet. Aħna l-ismijiet nkun smawhom għall-ismijiet ġew l-ewwel. Għal kollox għandna isem, inqas ma nafu iktar rridu nagħtu ismijiet.
Grazzi Joe. L-ewwel memorja illi ġiet waqt li kont qed naqra din is-silta hija memorja forsi l-istudenti tiegħi li qegħdin hawnhekk jafu biha diġà semgħuni ngħidha forsi kemm il-darba. Meta nistudjaw il-ġeneru, partikolarment il-ġeneru fil-kuntest arkeoloġiku, ġifieri fit-tiftix tal-ġeneru tal-identità fis-saffi arkeoloġiku tal-qedem, wieħed mill-esperimenti li kont għamilt mal-istudenti tiegħi kien illi ħadthom iċ-ċimiterju ifittxu persuna. Il-persuna kienu semgħu ħafna fuqha, il-persuna kienet transitionjat. Però il-qabar ta' din il-persuna qatt ma sibnieh. Wara illi żvelajt l-isem illi ingħata l din il-persuna fit-twelid, irnexxielna nsibu l-qabar ta' dik il-persuna. L-isem fuq il-labta kien isem ta' raġel, maskili. L-isem illi għexet bih dik il-persuna kien isem ta' mara. L-isem illi din il-mara għażlet għalija kien isem ta' mara. L-isem illi bih konna nafuha kien isem ta' mara. Iżda l-identità ta' din il-persuna ġiet iħħajġakjata speċi kemm mill-istat kif ukoll mill-familja kif xtaqu li din il-persuna tiġi infakra wara l-mewt tagħha. Romeo, ismek interessanti. X'kienet l-idea li ġiet ġifieri b'din it-transition li inti għaddej minnha? Għal xiex ħażilta l-isem u kemm importanti li nagħtu isem lil nfusna?
Firstly, I think when our identity affirmed is like a basic desire, right? And what you talk about this person, fil-qabar, so when you think of trans people, they're doubly victimized. So it's like they're victims of a violent crime, as well as in return being misgendered, because police, witnesses, family members, friends give false information. So when they're being written from journalists, like, I think it should be something that they should be really aware and sensitive about, to find the proper information, to not misgender this person, to write their name, whether they've legally changed their name. We should see their name as the real name, their chosen name as the real name. And I think in my perspective, I've changed my name to Roxman first. That's how my transition, before I even came out. It was a play on words, you know, from Roxanne to Roxman. And I carried it with me for a long time, and it's still legally I changed my name, and still my second name, because I couldn't part away from it. It's like what helped me transition, kind of come to this point. And I felt closer to it. And the only reason I didn't keep it is because it's not really a real name, or what people would know of a name, of a man's name. And already I'm you know, I don't pass as a cis man, so that's like already confusing. I'm constantly misgendered. So I thought, okay, I'll choose Romeo. It still has an arrow. I think it's quite sensitive and romantic. So being aware a bit of this feminine side of me, which now I become more embracing and not pushing it away. So yeah, that's how.
Romeo, tuża din it-terminoloġija li forsi mhux kulħadd huwa speċi mhux kulħadd jifhemha sewwa. Tuża din it-terminoloġija bħal pass. Tista' forsi tispjega telabora daqsxejn fuq din l-idea ta' passing. What is passing? What is transitioning, per eżempju?
I mean, I find the term quite problematic because through my transition, I don't see this journey as now that I'm taking hormones, I'm gonna become this cis man and add to that side of the binary, you know? It's like, for me, the binary is the problem of society in the first place. So it's not, but when you're passing closer, you know, like many people, because of because of their situation as well, some people have to, you know, that's how they're able to live within their environment because of their class. It could be because of class, because of various their economical needs, you know, like wherever they're placed. But I am lucky enough to call myself a trans man because it's unlikely that I would be kicked out of my job. It's unlikely my parents didn't kick me out. I'm respected by most of my friends, accepted. So I want to say that I'm a trans man, or else if we're constantly shifting between my transition, like I'm a man, I say I'm a man, I'm stealth, and then it's like, then in the world, trans people are never going to exist, no? We're always going to be man and woman. So when you're passing though, it's like because of my voice hasn't changed, I'm only on 1 year on testosterone, so I don't have facial hair, which is often associated to masculinity, cis man. So I'm like this in between. So that's what passing would mean. That's the closest to what people and society have told us a cis man would look like, or a cis woman in between.
Li fi żmien ispeċi waqt li kont qed nikber jiena kien hemm il-kelma stealth le fej persuna trans mara ma kienx minħabba raġunijiet jiġifieri professjonali, minħabba raġunijiet ta' stigma soċjali, ovvjament dejjem kien hemm l-ixu illi iżommu l-bogħod kemm jista' jkun mill-komunità trans, nies oħrajn trans, kif ukoll iżommu daqsxejn il-bogħod minn nies li huma forsi identifikaw bħala gay, biex ma jkunx hemm visibilità biex dawn il-persuni ma jiġux marked u xek ħalli speċi ngħaddu bħala heteronormattivi biex nikkamuflaġġjaw speċi. Titkellem fuq din l-idea ta' cisgender u cis male, x'tfisser eżattament li tkun cis?
Basically meta tkun cis ifisser li kif twilid what you have between your legs, because that's how people have defined us biologically. It's like aligns with how you see yourself, like how you present gender-wise. So if I was born a man and between my legs I have a penis, then that's kind of cis. Trans means that these two things don't align.
U meta speċi fil-esperjenza tal-ħajja tiegħek, in your life experience, ġifieri meta hija xi ħaġa li ntbaħħt biha f'mument speċifiku, hija xi ħaġa li bdiet ġejja fuqek bil-mod, hija xi ħaġa li.
Since I was a child, I knew I thought I was a boy, but you know, I actually really thought I'm a boy, and it's like you're growing up thinking that. I was lucky that most times I was allowed to dress however I wanted. But there were times when I was forced to maybe wear a skirt, and it was like putting me naked in the street or something, you know, it's like, what? So from a very young age, I knew. Then, obviously, in Malta, you come out as a lesbian, and in many cases, not just in Malta, it's like the thing, I didn't have any words I had no idea what trans means, just a few ideas, really horrible ideas of how people spoke about trans women at the time. I had no role model, no reference to what a trans man would actually be. So it took a while. Also, when you're queer and you come from a quite a conservative Catholic society, most times queer people are seen as not really sexual beings either, so I wasn't really thinking of this. I took out my frustrations and emotions differently through football maybe. And then it's only last year or a year that I came out as trans. But for a long time I've never really thought I'm anything in between like man and woman, but I felt closer that like I had words that I thought I'm a boy, I'm a man, so.
So hemm din l-idea tal-labeling ġifieri kif
Yeah, you are.
Fil-fatt jitkellem is-silta titkellem fuq allura f'din is-silta.
We're born in that environment where it's like man, woman, boy, girl, even at my time, which kind of, that's why on my passport now I chose actually male, and you could in Malta choose the X marker, which is non-binary, which I think that's the way for, you know, gender fluidity, like, you know, that's the way forward. But it's kind of, I'm keeping true to what I actually thought of when I was younger.
Però xorta, mill-nistarif hemm xorta speċi ta' kemm id-dokumenti kif ukoll il-legalitajiet kif ukoll il-labels ma jirriflettux awtentikament l-esperjenza polimorfika, polivokali li ngħaddu minnha, u xejn. Nixtieq ukoll forsi naqsam magħkom it-transition li għaddejt minnha jien personali li jien u Romeo tkellimna ħafna fuqha. Essenzjalment jien u Romeo speċi imxejna lejn l-istess destinazzjoni li hija d-destinazzjoni tal-maskulinità, ma mentri Romeo twieled b'organi li ma kinux aligned ma l-identità tiegħu, jiena twieled b'organi li kienu aligned ħafna ma dak li s-soċjetà speċi stennet minni. Però kont tifel sissy boy, ġifieri, kont tifel nimxi bħal tfajla, kienu ġifieri kulħadd jaqbad miegħi għaliex għandi leħni differenti, u kont naġixxi b'mod li forsi ma kienx bħal tfal ta' madwar, li kont nilgħab magħhom. Allura speċi ta' bejn tikber speċi ta' ethnic ambiguity li speċi minħabba ismi ħadd ma kien jaf jekk kienx Malti u le, minħabba l-kulur tal-ġilda speċi ismi kien ġenerikament magħruf bħal Mohammed, u ovvjament speċi il-klassi soċjali kienet dak li kienet. Allura speċi kien hemm dejjem din il-fatt li l-espressjoni tal-identità tiegħi kienet marked ukoll, kienet marked bħala. Allura meta kbirt ndunajt illi peress li kont dak li kien jissejjaħ effeminat ħafna, kont dak il-persuna li dejjem imur id-dar waħdu jew isuq in-nies id-dar wara li ikunu għamlu xi cruising session fil-ġnien tal-gżira li kienet tkun suċċess kbir għalihom, però jiena dejjem kont immur id-dar, indunajt illi nista' nagħmel transition jien ukoll, nista' immur ġo ħanut immaġinarju u nixxi l-identità maskili, nista' nsir butch, dak li jgħidulu butch, le. Intfajt bruħi u bġismi ġo ġim, ġifieri, bdejt nitgħallem nibdelleħ, rajt ħafna films fejn kien hemm ħafna modelli, ġifieri ta' rġiel li ta' maskulinità li kienet ovvjament preġata. U bil-mod il-mod bdejt speċi nagħmel it-transition tiegħi, bdejt nagħmel transition lejn dak illi s-soċjetà speċi ta' tistenna minni. Però dejjem kont konxu tal-fatt illi dak li qed nagħmel huwa speċi ta' performance illi kont qed nesperimenta bdieli jiena, ġifieri fir-riċerka tiegħi nsejja bħala teknoloġija tal-ġisem, il-maskulinità bħala teknoloġija tal-ġisem, bħala mod ta' kif topera ġismek, leħnek, dak li tilbes, l-atteġġament tiegħek, kif timxi, kif iżżomm bidejk miftuħin, kif titkellem fuq ħadd ieħor, kif tidħol ġo każino pereżempju tolli leħnek, jew titkellem fuq mara però ma semmix isimha pereżempju u tgħid x'tratiel il-bieraħ. U ovvjament qed tirreferi għal mara pereżempju jew għat-tfajla jew hekk qed tifhem. Jiġifieri inti tanonimizza kompletament, tneħħilha isimha kompletament, tneħħi l-identità tagħha kompletament, però mbagħad titkaża għax il-mislem jagħtilha xara. Sewwa. Il-speċi ta' fl-Islam hemm din niltaqgħu ma' ħafna nies Maltin li jitkażaw ħafna għaliex mara li hija Musulmana tagħti xara, però l-fatt li raġel Malti jgħid xtratieli ġabitieli magħha il-ġakketta pereżempju, u aħna rridu nifhmu li din għall-mara, però ma nistgħux nitkellmu fuqha li tibqa' anonima u tibqa'. U f'din it-transition indunajt ġifieri hawnhekk għall-ewwel darba ndunajt bil-maskulinità fejn il-maskulinità hija ħafna iktar milli is-suċċess fil-cruising, dak li huwa gay cruising, jiġifieri f'dak li huwa it-tfittix għal relazzjonijiet sessuali, pereżempju f'postijiet pubbliċi u f'postijiet intimi, eċetera, eċetera, dak li bil-Malti nsejħulu tabbi. Però indunajt xi ħaġa oħra, indunajt li s-soċjetà tagħtik dividend patriarkali enormi meta inti taderixxi għan-narrattiva tal-maskulinità. Jiġifieri, jekk inti tinvesti fit-teknoloġija somatika tal-ġisem tal-maskulinità, jekk inti ssir raġel, inti titħallas b'dividend enormi. Għaliex? Jitrattaw ta' raġel eterosessuali, eteronormattiv illi hekk suppost għandek tkun. Mela imburġu każin u kulħadd jitrattani b'mhux ta' sissy boy, mhux b'sebblieħ, mhux Muhammad, imma bro. U nibdew il-browaġni, insomma, nibdew dan il-browaġni kollu ta' li speċi ta' huwa interessantissimu f'dan il-punt huwa l-fatt li speċi ovvjament dejjem ġejt bl-idea li l-omosessualità hija tabu kbir fis-soċjetà tagħna, li speċi ta' kulħadd ma jista' jifhem illi din l-idea tal-pufta u mhux pufta, eċetera, eċetera. Mentri fil-verità meta tippreżenta lilek innifsek bil-prostetika maskili dak li xtrajt u l-bist sewwa, meta inti teknoloġikament tiżviluppa ġismek b'dan il-mod, il-biża' mill-omosessualità tisparixxi u inti tinduna li l-biża' hija l-biża' tas-sisijaġni, hija l-biża' mill-mara, hija l-biża' mill-emaskulazzjoni, hija l-biża' mill-effeminizzazzjoni, hija l-biża' mill-femminili. Hemmhekk qiegħda l-istigma fis-soċjetà ġifieri fil-verità. Il-biża' mill-mara. Għaliex inti, jekk inti tippreżenta bħala raġel, f'daqqa waħda, wisma' men illi naqax tagħmlu U kulħadd irid ikun jaf, pereżempju. Kulħadd irid ikun jaf u ħadd m'għadu jibża mill-omosessualità. Ġala inti darba tippreżenta ruħek bħala persuna li għamlet dan it-transition, anzi pjuttost jiġifieri jkun hemm tifħir kbir għaliex inti ma tidirx. Sewwa? Għax ma tidirx. Allura speċi tista' tkun mara, tista' toqgħod mara. Però l-problema mhix l-omosessualità bħala attività sessuali, bħala għażla ta' ma min torqod ma torqodx. Però hija il-manifest tat-teknoloġija ta' ġismek. Jekk inti tagħti din l-impressjoni li inti raġel, però qed tipprova tagħmel sabotaġġ tal-prostetika maskili, is-soċjetà se mhix se taċċettak, se tamarġina. Inti li issa dħalt fil-klabb tal-irġiel. Are you disappointed?
It's a thing. This club, when I often think about it, there will be a time when I look more like you and I'll be in the club for sure. But what worries me is, and I've heard other trans masculine people talking about it, it's like I would have contributed to the queer community for so long as a queer person, queerest of the queer. You're in environments where everyone respects, you're welcomed. But all of a sudden, when I'm going to be seen as this cis man, you could be shut away, turned away from your own community, which has happened. Which I think, it doesn't happen to everyone, but it's one thing that I often think about. It's like, it would be the worst thing to just all of a sudden become just part of the cis heteronormative crew. I wouldn't think of anything as boring. So that's one thing. But also
pożizzjoni antropoloġika, assolutament. It's sociologica, anthropologica.
I find it really interesting, and that's why I think also trans people could do so much work, because you're in environments where if I'm going to have the opportunity to be hanging around other men who are suffering so much also from their own, patriarchal misogyny curse somehow. You could educate somehow, because now you're within the club and you're seen as the bro, and people warm up to you, and it happens to me. As you did your experiments becoming super macho guy, looking into macho-ness, going to these bars. It was like an experiment, no?
Totalment.
And I go to environments where it's not always hanging with artists or other queer people who, get like, you don't need to prove anything. They know your world, you're in a bubble. And I find it really interesting to find myself in spaces where they're very heteronormative, very completely different to places that I'm used to being. And to see how you could try and start changing ideas, mostly around sexism, and the way they still see like men, women, like so, like completely different entities, Like, I find this, like now in 2022, and you have these conversations and people talk about men, women as like still very similar to how we were speaking about men and women like from ages ago. But I find this really interesting, and I have conversations when I start hearing people say something really like badly about their girlfriend or something, or women, and I correct them, or I say something. I don't let it pass, obviously, that's all. And they tell me, they're like shocked, like, what? Now you're part of us. Like, so can't you choose?
Yeah,
which side are you on?
I'm here to show you how to do it.
So it's quite interesting. It's not often I feel like I'm a guinea pig sometimes, because then trans, so they accept most times. Like, you could have like, you can meet like really transphobic remarks or like really transphobic people, but there were times when I found this is the way that I could do some work within the, yeah.
Bad fuq punt ġifiri li fil-fatt ħassejtu wkoll f'xogħol ta' Simon li qiegħed hawnhekk l-idea illi pereżempju fil-komunitajiet, dawn il-komunitajiet li tkellmu fuqhom, komunitajiet gay, komunitajiet trans, komunitajiet queer, non-binary, eċetera, eċetera. Il-mument illi inti tibda tagħmel ċertu transitions, kemm fil-verità hemm tossiċità mhux fis-soċjetà eteronormattiva hemm barra, ma kemm fil-komunitajiet stess. Hemm tossiċità, nista' nitkellem pereżempju nibda nitkellem daqsxejn jiena fuq it-tossiċità maskili fil-komunità gay Malta sewwa. Issa jiena nuża terminu gay bħala terminu storiku, mhux bħala terminu nużah bħala terminu epistemoloġiku, mhux ontoloġiku, nużah kważi storiku. Huwa fenomenu storiku, huwa fenomenu li in a sense abbinat mal-attivizmu, abbinat mal-emerġenza ta' il-moment li speċi tfaċċa l-identità, it-trauma tal-HIV u l-AIDS, insomma, dak li ġara wara, u li issa ħafna miżżar jiġifieri laqqas biss jidentifikaw bħala gay, però jgħidulek speċi ta' that's like so 80s, It's so 80s. And especially meta nsaqsi, so how do you identify? And they're like, no, we're queer. You guys do like muscles, drugs, and tank tops. You're like a historical phenomenon. You're a configuration in time. Illum ġodda ħafna inqas, żgħar jiġifieri identifikaw bħala gay. Però fil-komunità gay, anke kif għadha teżisti, jiġifieri forsi debri l-frammenti li baqgħanna, hemm din l-idea li fit-tfittix għal partner jew fit-tfittix għal sieħeb jew fit-tfittix għal serata erotika pereżempju, hemm ix-shortcuts, jiġifieri. Allura pereżempju kif wieħed jiddiskrivi lilu nnifsu fuq app, pereżempju, fuq dating app jew sex app jew xi ħaġa. U ġeneralment issib din il-kelma, issib din it-tag, din il-label no mask, no femme. So mask for mask, no femme. Ġifieri jekk inti omosessuali però tidher ma tistax, m'intix desirable, you are not desirable at all. So inti tkun trid iġġor miegħek il-prostetika maskili. Kulħadd jaf illi taqra l-Jane Austen u tħobb il-vanilla smell, eċetera, eċetera. Kulħadd jaf li għandek il-creams tal-Estée Lauder id-dar, però meta inti tmur għal dan id-dejt, jiġifieri, inti trid tmur imlibbes bil-prostetika maskili, ma tistax tmur. Idealment tidentifika bħala top ukoll, mhux bħala bottom, għax għandna din l-idea li speċi it-top huwa dak il-persuni li penetra, allura inti speċi ġejt bħala raġel. Din insiba tossika immensament, ġifieri insiba ġifieri tossika ta' skemmi tossika ġifieri il-maskulinità nintaqa' magħha ġifieri f'kuntesti forsi iktar eteronormattivi, però għandi xi ideat, qed naħdem fuq xi ideat għaliex xiex dan huwa l-każ, però nixtieq forsi nitkellmu daqsxejn kif in is-sitwazzjoni fil-komunitajiet trans, pereżempju, u fil-komunitajiet non-binary.
Well, I noticed this hate for the feminine and femphobia within the community, but mostly within the community you're speaking of, which is cis gay men. There were times when people from parties were turned away because they're too feminine. So we have this toxicity within our own community, and it's because we're replicating internalized ideas of what, of all of this, that the masculine is the most powerful, respected, honorable, whereas the feminine is the weak, the vulnerable. Within the trans, this term, I was reading a paper about Arabs and queerness, and specifically talking about Lebanon, and there's exactly what you're saying about these apps. The mask for mask, they say no femmes, and then straight looking, so you need to look. And it's a thing, so as queerness, being gay is completely alright, as long as you present masculine. So that's fine, the sexual act is fine. You could be married, respected, as long as you're doing the whole family, kids thing. What you do in bed it's up to the person, but only for a man, a homosexual man. A man who is as well as the active and the passive. So if you receive horror, like hell, but if you're the one giving, like penetrating, it's completely fine. Within our community, I think we're more aware. Most of us maybe are more aware, because for instance, I as a trans man, I'm more aware of what I know, surely what I don't want to be or become. And it's often through our character, no? Not, I love the aesthetic of masculinity. Dressing up, buying it off the shelf, as you say. Yeah, it excites me. But like testosterone is not masculinity, but up until now, testosterone is kind of the exclusive property of cis males, right? So it's kind of this whole idea about masculinity and toxic. It's like the patriarchal masculinity that we need to be more aware of. Like, that's why I don't even like toxic masculinity. What is this? It's like, because
x'inhi għalik eżattament kif tiddefinija ġo rasek din l-idea tal-maskulinità tossika? Kif tara kif kellek tiktibha pereżempju?
Because for me it's not the way you act. Like, I like this kind of walking. It's how you it's how we treat other people unequally. And what I mean by equal, it's like queer people and women fall within. So it's like, this taking up of space, not recognizing the privilege you were brought up with. But if it's like, if you're young, and I, who was born female, assigned female at birth, always presented masculine, it's likely that I would have not run into as much misogyny or sexism as a friend of mine who was born male but was really feminine. They might have struggled as much, and they were assigned male at birth. So how do we look into these terms, Like, not everyone who has been assigned female at birth is struggling through or suffering from or have experienced misogyny and sexism, and assign me people, you know. So it's not just only always men who are the victims of this, you know, we know. But this I find, I'm trying to understand this more, this idea, because I find it quite interesting.
U l-immaġina ġifieri fl-istess mod illi jiena speċi ta' tħares lejn il-katalgu tal-kategoriji li huma maskili għażilt minnhom speċi ta' ħanażel di, ħanażel di, ħanażel di, ħanażel di. Inti you're shopping at the masculinity supermarket, imagine.
Some I don't know what will happen, others I know more. It's like I know what I want, but...
U għamles speċi niġu fit-tema li jmiss, Laurent iżviluppa ħafna din l-idea ta' mara x'nilbes it-kaken, mara għax għandi r-rix imdawwar muti, mara x'nisbaħ wiċċi, mara x'inħossni faqa. Meta nkun bit-takuna, jew mara għax hemm aspett essenzjali fl-identità kemm dik ta' ġeneru kif ukoll ta' personhood, pereżempju. Niġu daqsxejn speċi ta' f'din il-juncture tad-diskussjoni. Ovvjament, kif qed tgħid sewwa, għal ħafna snin il-narrattiva xjentifika tat-testosteron hu li speċi it-testosteron huwa dak illi qed jagħmlek maskili, dak illi qed jagħmlek alfa, eċetera, eċetera, fimniha sew sakemm skoprejna ġifieri li ħafna mummies boys kellhom turrun tfal, pereżempju, anke meta ma kinux alfa, pereżempju. Skoprejna wkoll li ġifieri li nies testosteron levels veru baxxi saru aggressivi immensament, pereżempju, eċetera, eċetera. Kif qed tesperjenza il-teknoloġija tat-testosteron?
It's kind of really weird. It's like, you know, because you know that you don't want to become one of these men you fear and you detest somehow, but also you're going through some things that actually this man actually goes through. So physically you're experiencing him completely, and I'm aware, and but also I'm really aware that's like, you know, I hate the assumptions that it's like I often get. Inti tifel, issa inti tifel, ġifieri inqatt ma kont, jien dejjem kont imma. So there's that. Inti tifel, ġifieri jekk if I'm having a mood that I'm a bit grumpy or a bit aggressive, għalhekk mela, which is like, no, it's not what was inside. That's like socially, you are given more power. It's like when we're kids, no? If it's a boy who's like fighting, man, it's like, of course it's a boy, let him fight. But if it's a girl, no, don't do that. That's not your place to be aggressive. So it's like, this is things we learn. It's like, it's a, you know, personality. It's like just a person. So, but then, so I believe that I won't become aggressive because I'm taking testosterone. Just because men are, it's like, it's not a thing. I do, though, feel certain things like horniness, hardcore, it's a real thing. So it is like that is happening. So I could say, but I'm never gonna be horny, but it is. It's actually there. Something I was gonna say, another thing. You get a lot of energy, but like, you know, there are so many people who, but I see these changes physically. So characteristically, it's like, yeah, you start seeing, it's like my eyes, I feel like I'm seeing like this. Because I've been in roles, in environments, which is like, you know, more female, women oriented, and then you're on the side now, that's like you're navigating, and also because it's my passion and I've been observing it since forever, it's like I'm constantly, but I want to analyze this all because physically things are happening that is very close to what has been associated with a cis man. Mm-hmm. So that's something that I'm aware of. But I, like even this kind of hyper-sexualized, you know, like I want to make sure that I'm not adding to problematic, like, you know, what you're watching, you know, you can't end up in adding to the problem, and I don't want to, like, I need to... Specific, like, no, because, you know, you're constantly watching, whether you're watching, like, I'm watching, or like sexually, I'm completely open, like, so it's not like I'm just focusing on women and I'm gonna start looking down on women or accepting degrading things happening to women and allowing to watch it just because now I'm horny and or like, you know, I'm not like but it's sexually you do change a lot. Well, I'm experiencing it, and it also teaches you a lot about yourself. There was a lot of time when I was just not ever looking or thinking at a dick. And it's like now I look back, think, did I always ignore it because there's a lack, you know, and then transphobia comes into place, internalized transphobia and all these things. So it's like a constant questioning, which is great. I think that's what we should all do.
Of course. Sfortunatament, meta ħriġtina, jiena ħriġtina ta' żgħira dak li jgħidu l-coming out bil-Malti naħseb il-kelma fil-vernakolari ħriġt meta toħroġ le. Meta ħriġtina kont qed niżgħar forsi kelli 13-il sena, kelli dik 13-il sena, is-sitwazzjoni kienet faċilitata ħafna li xina ġejt imrobbi minn ġenituri lesbjani. Allura forsi għalija kienet speċi daqsxejn iktar komda s-sitwazzjoni. Ovvjament qatt ma kont il-maskot boy tal-politikanti li dejjem warbuni li speċi ta' dejjem xtaqu li l-narrattiva tiġi minn tifel tal-lesbjani però li huwa straight. Għaliex ovvjament speċi ta' ma setax tinbeħ sewwa u l-istorja. Però speċi il-coming out kien ġara kmieni ħafna, għalkemm domt ħafna maqtilhom lill-ġenituri tiegħi. Il-coming out mhuwiex event wieħed fil-ħajja ta' persuna, huwa event li jsir il-ħin kollu. Trid tispjega għal xiex m'intix miżżewweġ f'kull tieġ li tmur, għal xiex m'intix miżżewweġ ma' mara llum il-ġurnata. Kull mamudija, kull festin, kull event, kull familjar jew ħabib li tiltaqa' miegħu, school reunions, eċetera, eċetera. So you're constantly coming out, constantly, l-ħin kollu. U niftakar jiġifieri meta ħriġt jiena sibt diġà komunità ta' nies li speċi rawni liebes xi ħaġa letteralment jiġifieri. Rawni liebes shorts jiġifieri u speċi identifikaw minn dan ix-shorts illi jiena kont bħalhom. U hemmhekk speċi ħaduni taħt id-dirajhom jiġifieri u ħadu ksiebni insomma u rabbewni. Allura kelli din il-familja speċi tal-bot mill-familja tiegħi. Kont imwerwer illi speċi ta' noħroġ fil-familja tiegħi minħabba l-fatt illi ma rridx l-ommi speċi ta' tħoss illi l-ommi bioloġika kif ukoll l-stepmother illi speċi jħossuhom illi jew għamlu xi ħaġa qudiemi allura influenzawni, jew li ħajwaħlu fihom infushom, allura speċi kienet il-veru diffiċli li the coming out was very emotional ovvjament, jiġifieri, meta tkellimna l-kol flimkien. Però meta ħriġt jiena pereżempju u ġejt litteralment hijacked mill-gay scene, iffurmawni jiġifieri b'edukazzjoni ċinematografika, litterarja, ta' mużika u ta' kollox. Id-dinja nbidlet kompletament. L-ebda waħda bdejt nisma' lil Mina, bdejt nara l-films tal-Modovar, hawnhekk hawn sħabi jiġifieri, li bdejna naraw l-oħrani fil-fatija waħda minnhom, bdejna naraw dawn il-films flimkien u bdejna nħolqu identità, bdejna nħolqu l-identità tagħna kemm nifaqqa Carmen Maura, eċetera, eċetera. U speċi vera bdejna. Però fl-istess ħin, jiġifieri, għalkemm kien hemm din l-edukazzjoni superkulturali, iperkulturali bejnietna, kien hemm ukoll il-komunità hemm barra speċi, u il-komunità hemm barra għamlet ċert illi jiena sirt gay. Sa gay b'mod illi ifisser illi jiena in-nisa narhom biss minn perspettiva waħda ta' pupa. Illi mara nagħmlilha xara, inbidlilha, jiġifieri qed tifhem, eċetera, eċetera. Illi speċi ma tistax tara bħala desiderju erotiku. Il-moment illi inti tesprimi desiderju erotiku lejn mara, inti tiġi akkużat bil-lesbjanizmu. Ara lesbjana. Mill-ewwel. U ma lesbjana mill-ewwel. U din interessanti għaliex hawnhekk nixtieq nitkellem xi ħaġa fuq appuntu din id-dar fejn tiżvolġi l-istorja, le? Din id-dar fejn il-karatteri bejniethom qegħdin joħolqu speċi ta' kinship fittizju. Dak li huwa fictive kinship. Jekk tippermettili, jiġifieri nitkellem daqsxejn fuq di. Parti mix-xogħol li qed nagħmel bħalissa huwa li qed nitkellem ma' komunità ta' nies illi mhumiex parti mill-komunità gay, mhumiex parti mill-komunità trans, dawn huma speċi ta' il-rejects, tra virgolette, tal-rejects tal-advocacy groups, tal-activism groups, tal-attivizmu li qed isir fil-LGBTIQ bħalissa. Dawn huma nies li ovvjament nafhom tru ommi, huma nies li kienu fix-xena tas-sebgħinijiet hawn Malta u kienu jidentifikaw lilhom infushom bħala jilbsu, nies li jilbsu, dawn la kienu gay, la kienu omosessuali, la kienu trans, la kienu drag, ma kienu xejn minn dak. Daw kienu għaret int tilbes, jiġifieri di speċi ta' they meet on these lines. Tilbes ma tfissirx li tilbes ta' mara, jew tilbes ta' raġel, il-prostetika kompletament differenti. Dina prostetika fejn inti tħares lej il-bot minn dak li huwa l-vernikolar tal-prostetika Maltija fil-villaġġi, jiġifieri qmies u qalziet le, jew flokku qalziet. U tħares iktar lej moda li hija speċi xejn iktar ambigwa forsi fis-sebgħinijiet tal-Amerika, eċetera, eċetera. Però l-ispeċi ta' tagħmilha ħint daqsxejn pereżempju jew fit-tessut, jew fil-ħjata jew fil-mod ta' kif taqta' xi ħaġa, eċetera, eċetera. Inti meta tidher, meta tilbes, tidher illi m'intix ovvjament qed issostni n-narrattiva tal-maskulinità fil-immaġini tiegħek. Però m'intix li tista' mara. Jiġifieri inti qed tkun x'imkien m'intix ambigwu però di li rridu nżommu f'moħħna li di m'hemm l-ebda ambigwità fiha. Inti meta kont tidħol fil-każin liebes sewwa, in-nies kienu jindunaw illi inti torqod ma' raġel. Jiġifieri m'hemm l-ebda ambigwità, li inti raġel, li inti l-apparat bioloġiku tiegħek huwa maskili, però inti torqod ma' raġel sewwa. Issa, li interessanti hawnhekk illi jiena ġejt f'dik il-fażi fejn dan il-grupp speċi beda jisparixxi. U kien hemm il-grupp li beda ħiereġ ibbaża fuq il-maskulinità dik li ġiet iffurmata wara l-bidu ta' tmeninijiet, wara l-HIV/AIDS outbreak pereżempju le fejn il-ġisem tal-persuna gay rrid ovvjament jidher b'saħħtu, rrid jidher fil-pik tas-saħħa tiegħu peress li l-grupp kienet jiġi stigmatizzat bħala bil-gay plague, eċetera, eċetera, bħala ġisem marid, bħala ġisem li qed imut, bħala ġisem li jinfetta, bħala ġisem radioattiv, naraw pereżempju fil-komunità tagħna fejn it-tatu il-biohazard tattoo tindika li il-persuna hija HIV positive pereżempju, nitkellmu fuq POS, nitkellmu fuq post transitions pereżempju. U hawnhekk ġejt f'din ix-xaqliba speċi, però dan il-grupp interessanti għaliex meta nħarsu lejn din l-idea tal-fictive kinship kif naraw fil-fatt fid-dar illi kitbet fuq Loren. Hawn Malta f'din il-komunità l-indirizz kien dejjem bejn l-aħwa bejn is-sisters speċi bejn l-oħt bej uħtu oħra, kien illi it-termini kienu jkunu fil-femminili, pereżempju. Allura jekk inti jkun jismek Mark, allura inti blisem ħadd transition jew ħassir Marika jew Markita, eċetera, eċetera. U kull referenza tkun għalik bħala mara. Sewwa, jiġifieri ara waslet Markita, Mark kif intilu, meħellu u kemm libsa ħellu, eċetera, eċetera. U din hija xi ħaġa li vera taffaxxinani, speċi ta' għal xiex qed isseħħ din, għal xiex dan il-transitioning fil-pronoun, fl-isem, eċetera, eċetera, qed isseħħ. This is obviously a work in progress għalija, però ġifieri qed naħdem fuq din l-idea ta' fictive kinship li fejn inti pereżempju dawn in-nies ħafna minnhom ġew esklużi mill-familja tagħhom, ġew imkeċċija mid-dar. Għandi familjari tiegħi jiġifieri li ġew imkeċċija mid-dar. Ma kellhomx saqaf taħt xi xorqdu, jiġifieri dawn kellhom imorru jittalbu biex isibu post fejn joqogħdu. ma kellhomx impjieg, il-problema hi li fl-edukazzjoni pereżempju daw l-iskola qatt ma kellhom opportunità jistudjaw għaliex daw kienu jittieħdu fit-toilets u jissawtu jew jiġu rrejpjati, jiġifieri dawn huma stejjer li xi darba qatt joħorġu li għadhom ma ħarġux għaliex dawn in-nies għadhom bla vuċi qegħdin fil-margins tal-komunità LGBTIQ, jiġifieri they are the plus illi speċi qasnatuha isem kważi qegħdin f'dak il-container ta' plus this bizarre category plus taf kif. U li interessanti hu li hawnhekk għalkemm seta' kien hemm attrazzjoni sesswali u attrazzjoni erotika bejniethom dawn in-nies, inti taf li jekk inti ħad tiffemminizza l-oħtok, inti ma tixtieqx sesswalment. Jiġifieri il-mument illi Mark isir Markita is no longer sexually desirable. And what you have done is you've created a sister, basically. So you are forging kinship, you are creating a new form of kinship illi huwa ħafna iktar b'saħħtu mill-kinship erotiku sessuali tal-mument. Unsibu dawn in-nies din il-komunità ġifieri li jgħidulek pereżempju l-aħħar persuna li tkellimt magħha ġifieri qalt li mort il-ġnejna, mort il-ġnejna. U għax intom jaqnet qażżiskom toqgħdu ma' xulxin, jiġifieri hawnhekk qegħdin naraw l-import qed indaħħlu l-ġewwa ġod il-komunità. Il-tabu li jeżisti fil-kulturi, fil-formazzjonijiet eteronormattivi li huwa tabu tal-inċest. It's the incest taboo, so we are importing the incest taboo into the community to create, to forge this kinship, no? This fictive kinship. Il-familja ma diċ teżisti, il-familja bioloġika ma diċ teżisti, il-kinship issa sar fittizju, però qed jinħoloq fuq patterns li qegħdin jiġu importati mill-komunità ta' barra. Ovvjament ma dawn l-affarijiet qed jidħlu wkoll ċertu preġudizzji, qed jidħlu ma l-istruttura qed tidħol il-preġudizzju. U hawnhekk speċi titkellem inti sewwa fuq għadi li rridu noqogħdu attenti meta aħna qegħdin nagħmlu daw it-transitions x'se ndaħħlu ġewwa u x'hekk.
What you were talking to me about this discovery, this learning, what I find quite sad is that these people come from a generation and maybe they didn't have a community that they could converse, like they didn't have any references, they didn't, or like really tragic references, likely so. And sometimes I question, like, what if now these people who are likely to be trans women most probably, it could be, see other trans women, converse with other trans women, like would they still be so, because they're so transphobic and homophobic, like there is this internalization of, and it's like, I wonder what, like if they had an opportunity just now, to end up in an environment with great like examples of who they could have been, like how would they interact with that, you know, like I don't know. I've always found it, the last time I kept thinking about it, and I find that because you're having conversations with these people and it's like they push you, like there's not even
ċertament li qed niltaqgħu miegħu jien u ħafna cringe le, ġifieri, there's a lot of cringe, you know, hemm ħafna speċi ta' speċjalment lej l-ugwaljanza, lej attivizmu lej l-ugwaljanza, speċjalment lej il-femminizmu pereżempju, speċjalment lej trans. Jiġifieri daw qed jiġu speċi ta' emarġinati, jiġifieri ħafna iktar minn komunitajiet li issa speċi għandhom forsi daqsxejn iktar poter b'mod ovvju, ngħidu, ġifieri. Mhux qed ngħid li m'għandhomx poter ovvjament, jiġifieri għal fukoldjani madwarna, ġifieri ovvjament, jiġifieri hemm formi għandhom formi ta' poter. Però ovvjament mhuwiex poter ovvju, jiġifieri kif pereżempju hawn fl-attiviżmu gay bħalissa. Ġifieri fl ċertu poter illi nistgħu nsiru visibbli to the point illi nsiru invisibbli pereżempju. Din l-idea tal-esklużjoni, ġifieri inti għandek il-label, u l-label hija tool importanti, kif naqbad ngħidha. It's a heuristic tool li hija importanti li mingħajr il-label speċi ta' ma nistgħux nimxu il-qudiem fl-attiviżmu għall-inqas. U dan it-test huwa teoretiku, filosofiku, però hemm ukoll elementi ta' attiviżmu fih, ġifieri. Kif tħossok fuq l-idea ta' attiviżmu trans, speċjalment hawn Malta, tħoss li għandna bżonn minn fejn għandu jsir, minn fejn għandu jitkompla, per eżempju?
Legally brilliant, I mean.
Meta nitkellem ma' nies barra, per
In
eżempju.
comparison from all my trans friends from America, from the UK, there it's crisis, it's horrible, like waiting lists, like that take years to get some testosterone. So they go through how you kind of, like they share medicine to each other and stuff like that. A lot of gatekeeping within the medical system. Here, that's why I'm transitioning here. Even like it was really, for me, it was like really quite easy. But then people who are here, who have only known this system, still complain. And I think it's good to complain because we shouldn't settle for, but we're better than other countries. I think the more you push on a system, the better it will become. And we could be examples to other bigger, more established countries. But like legally, it's easy to change your name, like all this. But then, for me, it's like, I think that's the easiest part to get, the rights, legal rights. But for me, it's education, and I think we're still lacking in that aspect. We're not investing in education, so there's a lot of ignorance still on these topics.
Kellek xi forma ta' kinxipina nista' nitkellem pereżempju fuq nafhom sew nafhom kważi intimament dawn l-istejjer, jiġifieri fejn pereżempju qabel sourcing the chemical technologies for transitioning. So when it came to sourcing the chemical transitions, when it came to sourcing hormones, per eżempju, kien hemm kinship espliċita, kien hemm kinship li kienet f'posta fejn inti l-ewwel kont tilbes pereżempju, mbagħad meta inti qed tieħu l-ilbiż bis-serjetà, ġifieri ħadd tibda titransitionja, ġeneralment kien ikun hemm il-mater dolorosa li tieħdu taħt il-wing tagħha fid-dar tagħha, ġifieri f'dik il-komunità, u tibda tagħtik l-informazzjoni, speċi kif għandek tkellem it-tabib, x'gideb għandek tikdeb, kemm hyperboli ħatuża fuq kemm tobgħod il-ġenitali tiegħek pereżempju, u kien hemm modi ta' kif inti għandek tkellem il-psikjatra, għandek tkellem it-tabib, għandek kif ħadd ingaġġa mal-istruttura medika pereżempju, kif tesprimi depressjoni, kif ħadd tesprimi pereżempju tendenzi suicidali, eċetera, eċetera. U inti speċi ta' kellek training, you had the formation, you went to the house of transition, speċi u sfortunatament illum il-ġurnata din ma tix teżisti, ma tix teżisti fiżikament, teżisti online, per eżempju nafu li illum il-ġurnata speċi persuna li għandha 12-13 sena li qiegħda l-iskola li qed toħlom li transition qed tmur online, però l-online l-interazzjoni mhijiex kif kienet qabel pereżempju. Kif saret illum il-ġurnata speċi għandkom?
It's really interesting that you say this, because actually you still need to do the same. You need to know if you're clever enough how to speak to the endocrinologist, to the psychiatrist. There's a phase. It's like, even though here it's different than other countries because like there's Gender Recognition Act, so you it's not like you're passing a test whether they determine whether you're trans or not. In some countries it's still like that. Here, no, like I say I'm trans, no questions, and we start the process. But still, there's, you need to talk to the psychiatrist, psychologist, and the endocrinologist. So if these people who are in this position are not truly and passionately passionate about the subject of trans people and non-binary people, which that is another thing, Because then there's this question, but non-binary hormones, you want these hormones, you want to become this man, no? And if I say, no, I want a microdose, I don't want a full beard, it starts becoming confusing because these people are not actually from the community, and it's unlikely that you're gonna have trans people, non-binary people who are endocrinologists, like eventually there will be more of them because there's a kinder world. So there is this, and now they exist in online platforms. Private groups, you organize still, there's a lot of organization, people ask each other, don't do this, you can get, to get a faster process, like, it's better. I kind of acted when I went, I went really on top of it. I knew more than even the endocrinologist about this thing, but it's not about that. It's like, I knew that I'm not gonna, it's obvious that I'm gonna be scared shit taking these things and knowing that at 32, I'm gonna change so much. I have no idea who I'm gonna become, but showing that fear could make you seem you're questioning, you're not sure yet. So some people, there's a fear of the transitioning. It's only 1%, and it's like, so what? There's a fear of gender. Like, we're scared of gender. We're scared to experiment with gender. It's like, and there's nothing to be scared of. Billy, you get some hair, you get razor removal if I decide to, there's this thing. So there is a way, and I went thinking, all right, on top of it, to get the hormones fast. And I did that, but I know some people who had to wait for a year and a half because they seemed, they had maybe some other mental health issues. But you learn, and there are groups, how you met in a house like Marta Marta. We meet online through groups, private groups, from all, there are, which is like, I crave a community that's like, we meet trans people together. It's kind of, so this is kind of happening.
Rosa Kwir.
And how you said about going to the gym, getting hormones from a specific place, that's really interesting. I'm sure I've seen in films and I heard of people who, if they're going to another country, where are they going to get hormones? So they ask the trans community, hey, anyone in Paris who knows that we have testosterone, who could share some testosterone, who could give me a shot or something. So this it's like smuggling of drugs, dealing which is really sad because it's like, these are human. If you won't do that to a patient who needs pills for diabetes or like cancer, treat cancer.
Fil-verità, din hija tossiċità patriarkali tas-sistema. Irridu speċi noddu minnha meta nagħmlu din it-transition, l-istess pereżempju fil-kuntesti gay, pereżempju fejn it-testosteron huwa super komuni, kulħadd nibni ovvjament u kulħadd qed jagħmel it-transition li l-maskulinità. And again, ġifieri il-market biex il-black market għal din it-transition huwa kullum kien, speċjalment hawn Malta pereżempju fejn inti letteralment tmur ġo shower ta' gym ġifieri u tagħmel queue hekk u jiġi il-persuna bil-bagalja ġifieri u bl-injections u jtaqqab wieħed wara l-ieħor hekk letteralment. U kulħadd speċi jitkellem fuq kemm ħajjiggeġġja fis-siringa għamil li 80 pereżempju xi ħaġa.
It's a completely
U interessanti għaliex dan il-kuntest nitkellmu fuq speċi ta' vera tinħossni raġel. Speċi u inti tiddubi ta' x'kienu ħossu qabel. X'kienu ħossu qabel li beda jħossu raġel. Allura speċi hemm dan id-diskors. Ġo, għandna silta oħra forsi.
Il-ġlida tal-nisa għal-drittijietom nifhimha, imma hemm punt fejn nibda nara moħħlija għax iddajjifhom flok is-saħħahom skont jien. Veru li għandha punt, għax meta tiġi għandi ikolli nibdem il-sili biex ma nissuġġerilix il-għamela ftit ma xara, n-titrilla wiċċa bl-irdoq. Moħħi ma rajli tlaq jew dan mhux għax kif nagħtila l-komod u nagħtila d-defetti, imma x'il-wiċċ naħseb fih bħala tila li nista' nkompli nżejjel fuqha. U l-ġisem ukoll. Mhux l-ewwel darba li għaddili minn rasi nistaqsija Jekk nistax nilbisha waħda mill-ilbies isbieħ ta' ġan, bil-frilli, il-bitsilla u rakma, iżda qatt ma leħħintom dawn il-sibijiet, għax naf li kieku tismani għax-xar neħaj u tajjarni li qed nisma' ta' pupa. F'mumenti bħal daw nistħajjel lil ġan se jirnexxiela toħod li rriedni minn idejja u toħroġ tajja f'wiċċha. Pupa, mela xiet, pupa f'dejn kull min għandu poter iktar minnek. Għadik ħalli bomma f'istienek. Ma tarax li ġlieda l-liberazzjoni tan-nisa ilhom iserwilek minn taħt imnielek u reġgħu tawilek maġuna lura biex tixtriha u tkun sma'. Ma tarafx li f'din id-dinja il-ġliediet minn ġildin dejjem iżda merbuħin qatt għax kull rebħa jdawruha tiġri favorihom u allura kontrik. Il-ġlieda trid iġġib magħha diżordni u aktar minn hekk din ġlieda trid tkun parodija. It-kaken, l-irtok, il-parrokki, l-ilbies, iż-żejżit foroz, id-dillijiet, dawn huma l-arbi prostetiċi li rridu niġġieldu bihom biex inġibu fix-xejn din l-ordni kiesa li hawn madwarna. Inkun nixtieq ngħidu dal-idea għana tali.
Dik kienet waħda mis-siltiet favoriti tagħna, ma nafx kemm il-darba rajta ġifieri. Mela xil, niftakar dik il-mim illi għaw tiġri xaktarx jew xerjani għabejnietna. Niftakar din il-mim li għaw tiġri fuq fejn għandek speċi ta' għandek dil-image fejn in-naħa ta' fuq għandek il-Lady Gaga li qed tgħid I was born this way u naħa t'isfel għandek il-fuq qed jgħidilha no honey you're the product of power relations. U din il-biċċa speċi vera, l-ewwel immaġni li ġiet frasi, speċi għal fuq jgħidilha le, in power relations. Nixtieq mmur lura daqsxejn għal fejn qiegħed jiena speċi ta' bħalissa wara li ġejt indottrinat mir-reġim teknoloġiku gay. Il-coming out kien I came out of one closet, but I feel I was thrown into a cesspit. Parti għaliex ma nħoss li ltqajt ma' awtentiċità ma' xi ħaġa li kienet qiegħda ġewwa li kienet mejta biex tesprimi ruħha, li kienet mejta biex toħroġ minn x'imkien u tesprimi ruħha. Però ġejt indottrinat b'ċertu mod, jiġifieri li jiena pereżempju ma nistax inħares lej xi ħadd li huwa qed ngħidulu kkampjat u joġobni pereżempju, ġifieri xi ħadd li huwa forsi mhuwiex daqshekk straight acting, ġejt indottrinat pereżempju li inħares lej il-bottoms b'ċertu mod għax dak jaqala u mhux itih pereżempju allura. Ġejt indottrinat biex pereżempju ma nifformulax ħsieb erotiku fuq mara le, għaliex ovvjament ġejt indottrinat bl-istess mod illi l-upbringing ta' persuna eteronormativa ġiet ifformulata bil-professions l-oħra li speċi ta' ma tistax tilab bil-pupa, ma tistax tagħmel hekk, ma tistax tilbes tappuna, jiġifieri inħoss illi kien hemm l-istess frameworks, jiġifieri, verament l-istess frameworks. U llum il-ġurnata speċi noqrob lejn 50 sena insibha vera diffiċli illi niskava dak kollu, jiġifieri u nerġa' mmur lura lej x'imkien ieħor, x'imkien li huwa speċi ta' ħafna iktar fluidu le għalkemm nixtieq attivament, jiġifieri, u vera naħseb u vera nipprova niskava u nneħħi saf, jiġifieri, to undo all the drilling and the drumming, jiġifieri. Kien hemm bżonn ovvjament, kien hemm bżonn attivista, kien hemm bżonn politiku għaliex din issir, kien hemm bżonn politiku għaliex din l-identità ġiet formulata bħala xi ħaġa essenzjali, bħala xi ħaġa li tesprimi ruħha, però nħoss li llum il-ġurnata speċi qegħdin f'pożizzjoni politika fejn nistgħu forsi privileġġjata veru, però qegħdin f'pożizzjoni fejn nistgħu nipproblematizzawha iktar milli naċċettawha. Taħseb l-identità trans qiegħda timxi bl-istess mod, taħseb
I think it really depends on the space. The spaces, the places we find ourselves in. As we were talking about, it's like if I'm from the city or I live in a rural part, so like the way I do being a man or the way I do my gender or my sexuality is completely different. So yeah, I think it's I'm blanking.
Esplicitament. Il-transition tiegħek kienet tkun daqshekk faċli kieku inti pereżempju ġejt minn klassi iktar għolja pereżempju?
I see myself as a very, very privileged trans man. Most stories or most people I know have it completely different. Most times I would have done it differently, I guess. And class is it's a factor, it's a thing, whether it's like coming from a not middle class, like working class, or usually within my community, it's often working class people, or...
Where transitioning is maybe easier, no? No?
Well, because then it's kind of, it's different, because I think when you're coming from a working class environment, it's not whether your family accepts you or not, but then there's a thing about money, like, do you want to medically transition or not medically transition? Some people want to medically transition and they don't have the means or the resources. Conservative-wise, then it's another thing, because I often think that middle-class people and I have been some of the most conservative people, not accepting, transphobic. But I'm generalizing, and it's not always the case. It's kind of, it depends on all these situations, really, where you find your space in. But I, as a trans person, feel I'm really privileged because, you know, my family has, like, having a family that supports you, it's like, that's putting you up till, like, this high up. And then, so I wasn't kicked out, I didn't have any problems with getting my, start my medical transitioning.
Fl-esperienza tiegħi ta' transitioning ta' ħbib tiegħi illi forsi ġew meta kellna 18-19 sena, forsi nies illi naf mill-iskola, nies illi naf fil-komunità speċi li ġew minn backgrounds forsi iktar upper middle class fej il-ġenituri tagħhom kellhom aċċess għal konsulenza psikjatrika, pereżempju, daw ġew moddija minn reġims ta' psikjatrija enormi illi forsi klassijiet oħra ma kinux jafu bihom, pereżempju, allura kellek hurdles, kellek ostakli ħafna kbar, pereżempju.
That's really interesting, actually, to see it from that perspective.
Kellek ostakli vera kbar fej dan in-nies kienu jisparixxu, jidħlu f'kura psikjatrika u it-tkeċċija mid-dar ma kienx option, pereżempju, għaliex il-kuntest kien ħafna iktar konservattiv, ovvjament. U dawn il-familji kienu iktar viżibbli, ovvjament, viżibbli kemm bejniethom kif ukoll soċjalment f'Malta, allura speċi hemmhekk għandek kif ukoll, jiġifieri dawn peress li telgħu jitkellmu bl-Ingliż ma tantx sabu post fil-komunitajiet trans Malta, pereżempju, fejn ħafna drabi, sfortunatament fis-sebgħinijiet, tmeninijiet u tisgħinijiet, però għadna nibqgħu sejrin biha sal-lum il-ġurnata minħabba l-fatt illi jekk inti ġejt mill-klassi tal-ħaddiema, pereżempju, u qed tagħmel it-transition, jiġifieri l-aċċess għall-ormoni, jiġifieri li huma ta' ċertu kwalità m'għandekx, ovvjament. Qed tixtri dak li qed issib, speċi x'aktarx li qed tħallat ma' dożi ta' sustanzi oħra u narkotiċi oħra sewwa, u qed tispiċċa ġifieri fis-sex work, qed tispiċċa fil-prostituzzjoni, jiġifieri għaliex inti l-edukazzjoni ġejt esklus minnha u ġejt irrejpjata, ġejt ġismek ġi stuprat, eċetera, eċetera. ġejt imwarba minn kull forma ta' istruzzjoni, allura inti speċi anke bħala xogħol qed tifhem kienet daqsxejn diffiċli dak iż-żmien.
And up until nowadays, some people are not even given a place. Landlords won't rent to trans people. They won't give jobs to trans people. So then how do you get money? Then you're on the streets. You need to do something, you know, like it still happens. And abroad, because it's really about this place you find yourself in, because here you can get free healthcare. But in America, it's unlikely, and in the UK still you need to pay for surgeries, which is also a thing when we say like you don't need to medically transition either. But for those people who do want and don't have access to it, this means that so many people are likelier to commit suicide, you know, like to take that, because how can you live so unhappy and not get the access? And it's becoming even more and more difficult in certain countries to actually live like you want, the way you want to be living, you know. So then, but there's also this thing, it's like we need to kind of, from within the community, insist that it's fine that you are still a trans person if you're not medically transitioning. But then also, if someone wants to medically transition, they should have the access to it, you know? So it's like this thing, yeah.
Tal-lega l-punt speċi ta' kif tħossok fuq il-karattru ta' Natalie fil-Ktieb?
She frustrates me, but I really liked her throughout. But I was smelling like, you know, but I think she, like, and what Lauren does with the whole book, it's like, this is the beauty. And I think there's a lack of conversational skills within Maltese people. We don't converse, we don't discuss, we like argue, fight, and who wins, right? Minn and within the book, it's like, she's not imposing on us what's right, what's wrong, with like the ideas, like she's opening it up to giving us snippets of what and how people think, like putting them into context, why they might be thinking in this way and not that way. Natalie, she, like, what I love about her is, like, for me, that's the hope. That's what we should become, and there shouldn't be a fear of, like, attacking because, you're so outdated, why are you thinking like this, you know? Which we sometimes do, and it's like, it's true, through frustration, some people are more hard-headed, but Natalie, like, she was one of the radical feminists who happens to be trans-exclusionary, you know, she had these beliefs, even with her mother, even, not even, on what a woman should be now and all this. But then in the end, there's hope. And this is how we should all, like, for me, that's, like, so throughout I'm loving her, her character is so peaceful, like so positive, so progressive, so she loves women, like the fight for women and for women equality, gender equality. But then she fucks up completely in my case, because of Lottie, her friend, who tells her that now I'm a trans man, she can't accept her, which happens, and this is a really valid conversation because it's constantly happened between feminists and trans people, you know. And also a term, I'm not going to get into it now, this trans exclusion radical feminist, that's like how Jack Harberstein talks about it, because I always think it's important to talk. It's like, it's not these radical feminists that we should be scared of, though. It's like, because they've done so much work, like Natalie, and they're like a minority of the people who are trans exclusion. It's often middle and upper class white women who are the TERFs, really. So it's like, let's not hate so much on these feminist people like Natalie. But Natalie, for me, it's like, that's how I feel about her. I love her, then I really don't like her at all. Then I'm so grateful for what you've done with her character, because it is this book, that's what it will help people, you know. I think many people will relate to that character, and instead of remain hard-headed, they think, I can actually start accepting and change my mind. It's okay to change my mind, to not like remain like, no, this is what I believe, these are my values, and that's how I'm gonna die, you know. And so I think it's a hopeful character.
Inti sejjaħ il-ktieb bħala speċi ta' bħala il-kors fil-feminizmu. Xiex tfisser dik il-frażi għalik eżattament meta sejjaħ ktieb bħala kors mistenni ħafna dik il-livell feminizmu speċjalment bil-dwar.
That's what I think. I'm someone who doesn't even read as much Maltese, and this book, which is like, you know, I think in Lauren, in this book, she's took us through first wave feminism to fourth wave feminism and beyond, talking about these subjects in our mother tongue, which is so important, because often we're referencing phrases and slogans that are not from our language, they're from English language, you know, bilingual and stuff. And I think it's important for our community to find our own language in our own mother tongue and to be able to converse and create this language, because we have an identity, and so we should have a language for it, and vice versa, the language within our identity. So that's I found really interesting. And yes, no, I think there's a lack of knowledge still and learning on what feminism actually is. You still get phrases like, oh, dik feminista ta? Okay, yeah, you know, you still have these things. It's like some people don't even know what the wave is, which is fine, but that's like also not, you know. And within this book, that's like this. Quite actually, like, quite in detail. We go through all of the waves in a very accessible, actually, form. Not just like throwing names of like all the queer theorists and feminist theory. So you do it. But it excites you also to maybe and tickles that like you know, someone who would never have come across feminism or know much about it could go and learn more. It's a portal to learning more. But also I learned a lot from that. So if I had no idea what feminism is, through this book, now I have an understanding of all these things. Also, you're writing on gender, which is, for me, that was the most interesting, not, you know, because I've never really seen it written much in the Maltese language. I have a love for language and playing with, you know, like, so I was curious, because Lauren is doing it not in a experimental way, like properly linguistically, like grammatically, like through the language itself, like the formal way of doing it, of writing somehow. So I found that really interesting as well.
Forsi niddiskutu daqsxejn l-aħħar tema tal-lejla xi ħaġa li tinteressani laqtitni immens fil-ktieb. Forsi għaliex qed nara tisvolġi madwari, pereżempju, hija l-idea tal-erotiżmu, is-sesswalità u l-età. Lauren tesplora b'mod poetiku, però b'mod jiġifieri li kważi kaxkixni għax bdejt naħseb fuq l-età tiegħi qed naħseb speċi ta' fuq it-telf ta' ommi reċentament, li speċi bqajna nitkellmu fuq l-erotiżmu sa ftit qabel miegħek fil-verità, jiġifieri. Però hija xi ħaġa li inħoss li f'kull komunità ta' speċjalment il-mara fejn wara ċertu età u wara ċertu numru ta' tfal l-erotiżmu ma jibqax espressjoni tal-personhood tal-mara le. Qed nara increasingly jiġifieri fil-komunità gay ukoll fejn jekk inti taqbeż ċertu età tibda tissejjaħ daddy, bħalissa qegħdin nirriformulaw l-erotiżmu lejn id-daddy, però ġalla darba inti taqbeż ċertu età, il-komunità m'għandix posta lik, laqas il-komunità ta' sess instantanju, jiġifieri m'għandha posta lik, laqas labs m'għandhom posta lik. Sfortunatament għandi ħbieb tiegħi illi speċi ta' jitkellmu b'mod kattiv, pereżempju, fuq nies ta' ċertu età illi speċi qegħdin javviċinawhom u daw speċi ta' jwarbuhom u speċi ta' wara da joqgħod jibgħat li da issa pereżempju. Hawnhekk qed nara trend illi qed beżżani ħafna pereżempju, qed nara trend fejn nies illi għexu ħajja out gay fix-xena ħafna sa ċertu età qegħdin jevalwaw il-possibilità li jagħmlu transition huma stess. Din it-transition sfortunatament tissejjaħ conversion. Li qed beżżani ħafna u tbeżżani speċi ta' mhux l-idea illi persuna tieħu f'idejha rridni tal-identità tagħha u tajt jiena xbajt jiġifieri minn din is-sitwazzjoni nixtieq nagħmel conversion u mur in-naħa l-oħra, speċi hemmhekk ma nifhimx hawn ħafna stigma lejha ġifieri u forsi ftit mill-istigma nifhimha, però speċi iktar għandi kurżità aktar nixtieq nipproblematizza milli ovvjament speċi lock stock barrel ngħidu isma' barra. Ħafna minn nies li naf li huma ġenerazzjoni tommi ġifieri dawk li għandhom 70 u iktar illi kienu fix-xena fis-sebgħinijiet u tmeninijiet illum il-ġurnata m'għandhomx post fil-komunità, m'għandhomx post u m'għandhomx persuna f'ħajjithom. Dan huma nies li huma weħidhom ħafna, huma nies li m'għandhomx il-mezzi li ifittxu pereżempju gruppi. Dawna ġifieri huma nies illi identifikaw illi għexu ħajjithom jesprimu l-identità u l-ġeneru tagħhom mill-cruising. Sewwa, dawn ġifieri ħajjithom kienet sura ta' nies jekk jabbu, jekk ma tabbix għal xejn ġifieri dawna minn filgħodu imorru jippanċaw ix-xogħol, jitilqu, imorru l-ġnejna, imorru ġnien tal-gżira, imorru l-bombi, imorru t-toilets tal-belt, eċċetera, u dawn ġifieri jikkrużjaw ġurnata sħiħa sewwa. Ġifieri fitxu s-sess ġurnata sħiħa, jfittxu biex jabbu le, u mbagħad jiltaqgħu ma' xi oħt lemmulaw jew ma' xi tzil lemmulaw, insomma. Però ġifieri dawn huma nies illi għalihom is-sesswalità, the coming out was embracing a very active sexual self li tagħmel ġurnata tħuf bażikament. Dawn in-nies issa għamlu transition għal teknoloġija għal diġitali, ġifieri għamlu ġurnata jħufu fuq l-internet, però ovvjament ġifieri ma jsibux il-min jagħmlu. Hawnhekk ġifieri nara tossiċità ġifieri kbira, partikolarment tossiċità patriarkali li l-età tiġi de-erotiċizzata kompletament. Fejn aħna laqqas biss nimmaġinaw illi naraw iġsma ta' nies illi għandhom ċertu età li jesprimu desiderju erotiku jew sessuali jew eċetera eċetera. Fil-komunità trans qed tiġi affettwata b'mod ieħor hawn Malta. Il-komunità trans tagħmel it-transition, però wara ċertu età terġa' tagħmel transition lura. Jiġifieri jinqata' x-xahar, fil-każ ta' trans women jinqata' x-xahar, jinqata'w id-bielet, jibdew ġejjin il-tracksuits, eċetera, eċetera. Issa kemm bil-mod il-mod nerġgħu lura għal xi ħaġa li speċi ta' la hija espliċitament maskili u laqas hija espliċitament femminili. Din għaliex huwa diffiċli tgħix bħala an older trans woman in Malta. Hija inqas il-każ fi bliet oħra Ewropej, pereżempju, għaliex ovvjament hemm komunitajiet iktar supportive, però Malta speċi ta' we either have very tragic endings, kif rajna b'Katja pereżempju, ftit ilu, or we see the undoing of all of that, the undoing of the identity project. Inti għadek żgħir ħafna. Where do you see this going?
Well, it's a conversation that constantly we're aware of it, because even though I'm young, I've seen all of these tragedies through films, and it's just now, recently, that there are people from the community itself. So you have trans film directors who are making films that are more positive, looking at the community as a broader thing, not obsessing so much with youth, but this thing on youthness, it's not even within the queer community, but it's very, very present within the queer community, especially within the gay men community. Even in films we've seen it's like and apps. But also, I was really happy. I research a lot and I archive, like our stories. So I've been looking at a lot of moving image films, specifically on trans-masculine people, and doing all this research. And it's like so beautiful when I found this. Like, this was not even a movie, but it was a clip showing a camp for trans-masculine people in America, not in Malta, because trans-masculine people have been more invisible within mainstream media, in films and movies, so there's lesser of a reference to that in my case. But the thing that these people are saying, it's like there are young trans men who are like 18, 16, 17, then like a 60-year-old trans man. It's like, imagine, this should not be like, ooh, that's like it should be a normal thing, but for many of us, we've rarely seen a 60-year-old trans man. So you don't see yourself aging, basically. That's the thing. So this...
għanna speċi di responsabilità, di responsabilità li nġorru maħna li speċi ħanamluha b'mod etiku,
Exactly. And often, many people didn't have the opportunity to do it with, it's like life was shit, like they were just surviving, trying not to get killed at the age of 30 or whatever. With trans women, it's another thing. Within the context of Malta, I can understand what you're saying, even though I wasn't present within this community and I'm not so aware of it. But this detransitioning, not really. They're not detransitioning, they're a woman. They've always felt that they are a woman, so they are a woman. It's just society. One, mocked them, likely in their times, humiliated them. They were always a subject of a joke or victims of like violent harassment and this. So you have this, but you have the youthfulness, navigating through trying to be exactly who you want to be. And then you go through that, like you must have gone through so much, seeing your friends die tragically or like not really having a healthy lifestyle either. And then you grow older, you're tired by then, maybe you're still not being seen as who you really feel you are from the inside. You're growing old and you're in a community where they just fuck 20-year-olds and so you feel like you give up. And it might be seen this like giving up through your clothing. You stop making an effort. But I think it's just aesthetically they're detransitioning, really. Because I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's likely that inside they're still that woman they've always been, even if people are not recognizing that or respecting their name as what it is or seeing them as...
Or maybe it's just a place of post-gender nirvana, no?
Amazing.
Where, where you completely undo, the gender project completely, when it's no longer relevant. Tħossok mara, tħossok raġel, tħossok faqa, tħossok pupa is no longer an issue, it no longer matters,
I guess also it could be seen as a positive thing, as you said, and you're like so comfortable, whatever. It's like it's not how you look, it's at the end of the day, it's like how you're feeling. And maybe the transitioning they're doing is like you're finally really comfortable. It's how you feel really, not how you look as well. So it could be.
Naħseb li speċi tkellimna fuq ħafna temi hawnhekk illejla. Ovvjament nistgħu nibqgħu sejrin, speċi nġibdu għaw isqinkan. Però ovvjament li nfakkaru illi dak li tkellimna fuq illejla mhuwiex dak illi huwa fuq il-ktieb biss. Il-ktieb huwa fuq ħafna iktar affarijiet, speċi aħna kif laqat lilna le, ovvjament speċi dak il-concerns tagħna le, għandna particular concerns fuq il-kostruzzjoni tal-ġeneru, l-idea tal-ġeneru, il-maskulinità, it-tossiċità kif, speċi ovvjament kif rajna f'dil konverzazzjoni, it-tossiċità mhijiex xi ħaġa li taderixxi biss li teħel biss mal-ġisem ta' raġel cis eteronormattiv, però tiġi repetuta, tiġi negozjata u rinegozjata f'kuntesti fejn qatt ma tistennija. Ġifieri ħarbet minn kollum kienu qed tiġi imdaħla u interessanti għaliex narawha darba fil-ġimgħa fil-Garrett Beach pereżempju, tidħol inkiss u narawha le. Nixtieq ħafna li ġejt mistieden fiżikament fid-dar illi kitbet fuqha Loren, però ġejt mistieden b'modijiet oħrajn ġifieri. U se tiġu mistiedna intom ukoll ġifieri ktibjat hawnhekk vera nissuġġerixxu li tixtruhu taqrawh. Huwa fuq ħafna iktar affarijiet. Fil-fatt ġifieri Loren għamlet sewwa illi pjanat iktar minn serata waħda għat-tnedija ta' dan il-ktieb għaliex il-ktieb ħajolqot qarrejja. Il-fatt li speċi ta' anke u bħala ġeneru li sejjaħlu rumanz huwa speċi ta' għalija huwa rumanz, però għal-qarrej oħra forsi huwa dram fil-verità. Ġifieri da ħajjaqleb it-text types il-ħin kollu. Però dan speċi kif laqat lilna u speċi diskussjoni li kellna jien u Romeo wara li qrajna l-manuskritt. Ovvjament il-bieraħ jiġifieri pereżempju id-diskors fuq il-femminizmu, id-diskors fuq il-mara, id-diskors ta' pereżempju kif rajtu jiena din idea li assoċjajt ħafna magħha pereżempju għal xina wkoll flajt ħafna immaġini jiġifieri li immaġini kattoliċi pereżempju tal-ġisem tal-mara u ovvjament jiena sirtna fil-ġisem tal-mara mill-ikonografija reliġjuża u mill-pornografija u mill-moda speċjalment u miċ-ċinema. Il-ġisem tal-mara ma nafux karnalment, jiġifieri ovvjament, ma kellix kuntatt miegħu sesswalment pereżempju jew erotikament. Però speċi tallimt fuq u kif titgħallem fuq u tifla Maltija li kibret jiġifieri tmur id-dottrina, eċetera, eċetera. Tifhem jiġifieri mhix ħajkun hemm speċi limitazzjonijiet fuq kemm ħadd ingaġġa ma' ġisem ieħor ta' tfajla pereżempju. Kif rajna fil-filmat pereżempju, kif rajna fil-video installation il-maskulinità, ċertu tip ta' maskulinità, super tossic anzi jiġifieri History of Sexuality fuq jitkellem fuq it-tanatopolitika li jinbemba jiżviluppa fil-necropolitical, illi pressi għadhom jiżviluppa fil-necropolitical masculinity fejn il-maskulinità ma tibqax tiġi definita bħala xi ħaġa illi isseħħ ġala darba bniedem bioloġikament raġel jipprokrea jew jipprovdi għall-familja pereżempju, imma illi fidejh ikollu iljet illi joqtol. U hawnhekk jiġifieri siltiet mill-klib ta' Loren ma nixtieqx naqsamhom illum għax qegħdin fl-essej li kitbet Rachel pereżempju, però ovvjament qegħdin fil-ktieb, Loren tiddiskrivi b'mod b'saħħtu ħafna pereżempju fuq kif it-tossiċità maskili żebbilħet il-ġisem ta' mara, kif kisritu, qatnitu, qatlitu, besqet fuqu, eċetera, eċetera. U hawnhekk il-ktieb huwa qawwi ħafna. Il-kitba ta' Loren hija qawwija ħafna. Qawwija sew. Allura speċi huwa ċar illi din id-diskussjoni naħseb illi nisperaw illi kien ċar illi t-tossiċità hija aspett mill-maskulinità. L-urġeta nitkellmu fil-plural, nitkellmu bil-femminizmi, maskulinitajiet, eċetera, eċetera. Ma tnix nitkellmu fuq femminizmu monolitiku jew mara monolitika jew raġel monolitiku stabbli li ma jinbidel qatt across space and time. Però nitkellmu ħafna fuq identitajiet multipli. U naħseb illi l-ktieb jurjom sew, tajjeb ferm il-multiplicities. ħafna. Però naħseb li mid-diskussjoni ftemna li t-tossiċità vera ħarbet mill-post fejn bħal-kapitalizmu kważi issibu kullu kienu u vera jadatta sewwa it-tossiċità maskili tadatta sewwa anke fej ma tistenniex f'komunitajiet gay, f'komunitajiet ta' nies jilbsu, f'komunitajiet non-binary, f'komunitajiet trans, se nsibuha kullum kien, ġifieri naħseb illi dawk in-nies li qegħdin jittransitionjaw, dawk in-nies bħali li qegħdin jittransitionjaw lura għal il-bot mill dik il-maskulinità li esperimentajt biha forsi fil-passat għax tatni dividend tajjeb għaliex ġej trattat tajjeb speċi u l-bot illum speċi ta' qed nerġa' lura, qed immur lura l-bot minnha forsi li nistgħu nippromovu speċi ta' attitudni iktar etika lejn kif on how to do gender when it comes to doing gender and when it comes to doing sexuality, that the more we mark gender, the better able we are to be ethical about the way we do it, Well, thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Ġejtu.
Thank you.
Incredibli li l-diskursata vera għalija huwa suċċess enormi li dan ir-rumanz diġà beda daw id-diskussjonijiet għax dan huwa wkoll iskop huwa xogħol letterarju, però jixtieq ukoll illi jmur oltre minn hekk u li għal dan tip ta' diskors, jiġifieri napprezza ħafna li intom aċċettajtu li tibdew dan diskors. Grazie.